All right, there we go. All right, we're getting started. Thank you guys for coming in. We're going to do a little bit of, I don't know how long I'm going to be on. This might be just a real quick one. I just wanted to kind of share what my thought processes are for Marshals and Generals. Marshals and Generals, if you don't know, is the Napoleonic rule set that I am working on myself. And I come on from time to time and I talk about my progress and what my thought processes are and things like that. I started this rule set over a year ago, probably 2022, around October-ish of 2022, I think is when I started. And then probably around February or March, something like that, I had a mental block writing the rules, right? I ran into a couple of different, I struggled with a couple of different rules, and I thought it best just to set it off to the side until I had a better understanding of which direction I wanted to go with the rules. Give myself a little bit of that, what do they call it, the creative process. Let my mind kind of just ruminate on things. Mainly, it was the combat system. I was trying to figure out, I had like 15 different combat systems, I'm exaggerating, but I had a bunch of combat systems in my head, and I wasn't sure how, and I liked all of them, and I was trying to figure out which one I was going to use, or what combination or what blend of them I was going to use. And I just kept rewriting and rewriting and rewriting. I would write a set and I would say, no, I don't want to do that. I want to do it this way. And then I said, okay, let's try this. And then I was like, no, I don't want to do it that way. It doesn't work. It doesn't do what I want it to do. Or this is too complicated. Or this is too slow. Or this just won't be fun. You know, and as you know, my mantra for Marshals and Generals is fast, fun, and playable. So it has to be a fast set of rules. It has to be playable. When I talk about playable, what I'm trying to say there is a couple of different things. I want it to be intuitive, easy enough to learn in just a few minutes. I don't want you to have to I don't want you to have this 100-page rule book that you have to study and memorize and figure out how to play a Napoleonic game. It's fine if you do that, but I don't want it. I don't want that to be mandatory. I also have like a desire for this game to be taken to a convention where they have 4 or 5 hour game sessions and a referee, a host of the game session, to be able to sit his players down and say, this is how the game works in like 15 minutes, right? Just let them know how the game works. Now, not all the details, not all the ins and outs, not the best practices or the strategies, but at least the players will be able to start moving figures and rolling dice in the first 15 minutes. That's what I want my rule set to be. And I want a game between one core against another core to last under 4 hours, under 3 to 4 hours. I don't want it to be a slog where you're like, boom, 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 boom. You know, you're constantly hitting a unit, it's falling back, routed, the general runs over there and rallies it, and it goes back into the fight, and it's constant back and forth. That's not what I want. I want it to be more indicative of what actually happened in the Napoleonic period, and that is units fought until they broke. And when they broke, there was no stopping them. They would fall back. They might rally, don't get me wrong, they might fall back in good order, or they might fall back at a dead sprint, a couple of miles back, and the general yelling at them the entire time saying, stop running, get your ass back together again, and, form up. Sergeants, what are you doing? Whatever. And then they would slowly start to reorganize, and possibly, depending on if you're playing like an all-day battle, maybe they would return to the battle. But 9 out of 100 times, I was going to say 9 out of 10, but 9 out of 100 times, units would rally and come back and have any significant, meaningful impact on the battle. So why put your players through that hell of having to concern themselves with rallying a unit that's never going to come back and do anything anyway? Or why give your players an opportunity to beat the odds, or I should say to do something ahistorical where they're constantly bringing units back into a fight, which they shouldn't be able to do. So what that means is, you break a unit, it's gone, right? It's off the table. It's routed. Yeah, they might come back if you're playing a campaign. Yeah, they might come back, but for the 3 to 4 hours that you guys are playing on the table, they're not going to return. So there's no need. That whole mechanic is not even needed in my set of rules. So once a unit breaks, it's gone. And then, so what does that mean on the table? Well, that means that as units break, a force's firepower and strength is going to be reduced, right? It's going to impact the battle in a significant way, and that will happen on both sides. And I love the battle group, which is a World War II game, by the way. I love the way they handle force morale. What I mean by that is army morale, or the entire army, right? Or the battle group. But in this game, it would be the entire table, right? So you have a number simulated, which will simulate the morale strength of a corps or an army or something like that. And as units get kaputted, as as David says, as they get routed, they will impact their compatriots. So you will draw just like in battle group, you would draw a chit out of a bag or a box or a baseball cap or a cup or whatever. You draw this chit out of it, and on the little chit it'll have a number, and that number could be 0. And I think I'm going to go 0, 1, 2, 3, I'm not sure what the range of numbers are, but it will start at 0. There will be um, there will not be an equal number of zeros as there are ones, as there are twos. Uh, it's going to be very similar to like an averaging dice. So there'll be very few zeros and very few threes, but ones and twos will have the biggest quantity. And then, so let's say you kill a battalion, you draw your chit, and it's got a 2 on it. Well, now you put that face down away from your opponent, and you keep a stack of them. As you lose battalions, you, over time, develop a collection of chits. And when those chits total the value that you started with, the army morale, or the force morale, or whatever you would like to call it, core morale, then once you reach that number, you've just taken so many casualties, or perceived casualties, that the rest of your army just can't stand. And so what I would like to do is, and I'm not sure how I'm going to balance this yet. When we get to morale, that's not what we're working on today. I'm just sharing this. When we get to morale, I will I'll work on play balancing that. But I don't want, let's say you have a core. Okay, let's just think this through real quick. Let's say you have a core with 3 divisions, right? It could be 4 divisions or 5 divisions, but let's just say 3 divisions. And each corps has 2 brigades, or each division has 2 brigades. So now you're up to 6 brigades. And let's say each brigade, just as an average, has 4 battalions, right? So you're looking at 24, 6, 12, 24 battalions. Now, something that I am going to do is, when you lose all 4 of your battalions out of 1 brigade, the brigade commander is also eliminated. Because you could imagine, hypothetically, think of it like this, that brigade commander is chasing his men down, trying to rally them, right? So he's actually out of the fight. So he doesn't just get to sit on the table as an extra general, right? So he's gone. And I'm thinking, and I'm leaning towards this, that once a brigade commander chases his men down, that's also a chit, right? Because he's as impactful as a battalion. He doesn't have the strength, he doesn't have the fighting power, but because he's a leader, he will impact the army, right? Okay, so far we got 24 battalions, hypothetically, and 6 brigadiers. So that's a total of 30 chits. Division generals, I don't anticipate losing both brigades, and then if you do, the division general will be picked up as well. But approximately 30 chits out of that core that I'm talking about. And if I want it to be somewhere in the neighborhood of maybe not 50%, maybe not 15, but 20-ish, right? So you've lost 2/3 of your core. At that point, I think the core, I personally believe, the core will have fled the field. So, with approximately 2/3, and hypothetically, let's say this is not going to be the case, but hypothetically, let's say every battalion gives your army morale 1 point, and the generals don't. You're only looking at 24 points. What is that? 8? 16. Okay. So it would be 16 out of 24. Okay. I'm just thinking 2/3. That's what I'm thinking. So if I draw 16 shits and they're all ones, my army is basically broke, right? Because I built up a total of 16 points. But some of those could be 2s. Some of them could be 0s, some of them could be 3s, but most likely it's going to be a 1. The 2 is going to be like, think of it like this. About 20% will be 0. 20% will be 3. So that's 40%. And then maybe 30 and 30, 1s and 2s. I don't think so. Maybe a 40 and a 20. Yeah, because I want my 2s to be just a little bit less than the 1s. I want 1 to be very prevalent. But it might have an odd number. I don't know how I'm going to work all that out. And all I'm going to do is just get a bunch of tokens and write 1, 0, 2, and put them in a bucket. So for playtesting. All right, so if I draw these chits and it totals my 16, then game's over. You win, shake your hand, good game, GG, and let's go again. If you've got an afternoon, and you want to play again or whatever, switch sides. Because I want the games to last 3 hours or 4. So what does that mean? How are we going to get to 16 casualties in 3 hours? Well, it won't be that hard, because you'll move across the field. Maybe that'll take, depending on the scenario and how everybody's deployed and all that stuff, and reinforcements and et cetera, et cetera. But moving across the field, I'm going to anticipate maybe 10 or 15 minutes of gameplay. And then the engagement, it might be shooting, it might be melee, and I anticipate multiple units shooting, multiple units meleeing. I would say that most units will be eliminated after maybe 2 or 3 rounds of effective gunfire, right? Because you might have some ineffective stuff. You might have some effective stuff. So 2 or 3 rounds. So let's say 3 rounds, throw an extra ineffective round in there. So after about 3 rounds of gunfire, which I'm going to say is probably another half hour, you probably lost, I'm just visualizing, you both probably lost a third of your army. right? So that's how I want it to be. Um, I want it to be. Now, there can always be a little bit of maneuvering. There can always be, focusing of your fire and engaging in melee, charging with cav, and all that stuff. That's all going to be worked out through playtesting. But after an hour and a half, I think you should have lost a third of your army, right? And then maybe another hour, you lose another third of your army. I mean, if things are going bad for you, you know, I'm just saying. And so after that, after 2.5 hours, you've lost 2/3 of your army. There's a good chance through the chit draw that you have reached your army morale. And so that's what I want. That's what I want. I want it to be fast. I want you to move, position your army. That might take a few minutes depending on how you do your armies. Not having to worry about command and control very much because it's pretty much set. You get your guys moved up. You start shooting and meleeing and charging and getting pushed back and all that stuff. And then all of a sudden, units are dissolving. Some units are reduced in strength. And then eventually they get reduced enough where they get blown up, right? And then maybe if you lose a whole brigade because you've just been crazy, or they attacked and focused on one of your brigades, you lose a brigade commander as well, or something like that. And if it takes a little bit longer than 2.5 hours, that's okay. Because remember, I'm trying to do between 3 and 4 hours, right? But I'm including the 15 minutes of lead up to gameplay. So that 15 minutes rules instruction at a convention, that's where my focus is, right? I'm focusing on a set of rules that you could hand the QRS to all the players, one sheet, double-sided, QRS. They can look at it, flip it over, and in 15 minutes know exactly what they need to do to get their units moving and positioned in the right area. And if there's anything really crazy about my rules, which hopefully there's not, that, you can, as a referee, you can point it out like, okay, now in this game, the author said that, you can fly over these buildings. No, I'm not going to be like that. But, okay. Let's get into this. All right, so we're going to start. I just wanted to work that out in my head, actually, while I was talking to you guys. I've got this set up less so that for me to type, and more so for me to. Can you see that on the screen? Oh, you can. Okay. I don't know why this is. I use OBS to stream, okay? And on my screen, on my monitor, I've got that little up and down, that cross, right? Because there's an image there, and if I click it, I can move it around. That thing is like this big on my screen because I'm blind, right? So I've got this giant, I mean, it's probably covers Napoleon's entire face from bicorn down to his chin. But on OBS, it looks like it only barely covers his eyes. Because I think in Windows, I said, make my mouse pointer giant, right? But in OBS, it's not capturing the screen. Not like I would think. You know what? I'm gonna mess around. Sorry, guys. Properties. Capture cursor. Yeah. Okay, it's got capture cursor. If I turn off capture cursor. Wow. Okay, so now you don't even see where my cursor is pointing. It just disables it. Is there... Okay, capture method? I'm going to try this. Hopefully that doesn't mess everything up. Hey, look at that! Oh, look at that. Okay, that's the size that it's supposed to be. Okay, I changed it from automatic to Windows. Windows 10, actually. Okay, there it is. Fixed it. Figured it out. Okay, I woke up this morning. Understand today is me talking to you guys and working through my rules. This is a dev blog, so basically it is me hashing out the rules for wait, you didn't see that. Go to English. Coconut water with pulp. It's actually very good. Sometimes the pulp is hard as a rock. I spit it out. But other times I'll just swallow it. But yeah, it's actually a good brand. I like that brand. Vinit. I got it on Amazon. Okay, so where was I? Yeah, so if you've never been to any of these dev blogs, what it is me, the developer of this game called Marshals and Generals. I am writing a set of rules that is going to be a quick play, but not so quick that it's unmanageable. All right, so on the table here, I have some 10 millimeter. Okay, this is actually N or Z, N or Z. I don't know what it is, but it's a model railroading building. I think it's N, but it might be Z. Because that's not the door that you want. Whoops, that's not the door you want to measure. That's the door you want to measure. Might be Z. Might be N. N is 144 scale, right? N is 144, which is about 2 centimeters for a guy. No, it's not 2 centimeters. That's 12 millimeters. Yeah. Yeah. N? Or is that Z? N is 12 millimeters. Yeah, this is probably N. Because I think N is 12 millimeters. And I like buildings that are a little... I like buildings that are a little bit smaller than the scale of the model. And that's because of ground scale, right? Okay, so in today's video, we're going to be talking about terrain and now I've increased the table of contents and I've added a section terrain, and I also added a section called QRS, which we'll have to, I'll create a QRS at the end. I've already expanded my introductions. You can pause the video and read that if you want. Purpose of these rules and general concepts. I think I need to expand those a little bit more. We got our basing. That is where the stumbling block was solved. Once I went to the 40 millimeter base width basing style, all the other rules have fallen into place. Okay, so let's. Yeah, this is not edited or cropped or anything. This is just me throwing stuff at the wall. Okay, we got turn order, initiative, command. I took some pictures of what is and what isn't in command. This unit over here is out of command because he's more than 3 base widths away from the Brigadier. This Brigadier could be moved a little bit further this way. As you can see there, the 3 base widths goes all the way to there. So he could probably scoot over almost half a base width, and that would reach him. But at the time of calculating who's in command, he's out of command. Okay, and then I did a whole division where you've got your corps commander. He's got a 9 base width range, and then the division commander's got a 5 base width range to 2 brigades. And this brigadier is in command of all of his infantry, even this guy, because you can see the 3 base width range. And this guy is in command of all of his brigade battalions, and divisional artillery to be in command have to be within one. They have to be within the command radius of either of the brigade commanders, right? So right now everybody's in command. Okay, declare charges, fire phase, which I'm not sure if we're going to stick with starting at green. And that's another thing. What I need to do is I need to include the ups and the downs, what dice that changes them into. And that's straight out of Meg, okay, to be honest. Activation phase, actions, move distances. I still need a bunch of pictures. Charge, we need to work on charge. Formation changes. Limbering. And then here we go, occupy, depart. Once I realized that I was neglecting my terrain, cover and stuff like that, I realized that I needed to have a move action called occupy or depart the town. Then there's close combat. I don't know if we're going to start at green. We probably are. And then there's morale. Yeah, I got right here chits numbered 0 to 3. Yeah, and this is true. 1 chit for every unit destroyed, 1 chit for a brigade destroyed, and also you're going to draw 1 or 2 chits if an objective is taken. So that's going to be like, let's say a crossroad is the objective of the battle, like Quattrobra. And once that crossroad is taken, and I'll have to define what that means, then the unit will have to draw a chit. Okay, end turn activities is pretty much just cleanup. And then here's the terrain. Okay, so I've decided I'm changing this. Modeled as a 4x4 base. Okay, previously I had my buildings on a 4x4 hard wooden base, right? Plywood base. And I can't. And I decided I don't want to do that. Hold on, I got a runny nose. So then I thought, well, because I don't want it to be a strict 4x4, right? I decided I don't want that. I want, for one thing, I don't want it to be inches. I want it to be base widths, because every measurement is done in base widths. But I also want there to be an opportunity to make it less than 4 inches. And I want there to be an opportunity that a town sector is larger than 4 inches, or a town sector is an irregular shape, like a, what's the word? Not hexagon, not polygon. What is it when you have like an unusual, a trapezoid? Is that what it's called? Yeah, I want it to be, I want the shape of the town sectors to be malleable, right? And if you force your buildings to be on a 4x4, then you can't necessarily fit the, because what if your road, okay, yeah, what if your road goes straight up and the second road goes at an angle? And then you want to put your town sector right here. Well, it's not a perfect square, right? It's not a perfect, because your roads might be like this, or you might have a Y intersection or something, right? And so, depending on the scenario, maybe your road comes up to a river and it crosses the river at an angle. And so a 4x4 square, it's nice to think about, but it doesn't allow for any variation, right? And so I want to get rid of that. So there's two ways. There's really three ways that you could do this. You could make a base that is bespoke to that road intersection or river or something, and glue your building onto that. Or you can make the base and then or you could just go with the 4-inch thing. Don't want that. Okay. So what I've decided was, I remember when I used to play Command Decision, right? I played it in 1/72. I've done this with my black powder games. And I'll kind of try to explain it a little bit. So here's an actual 15 millimeter American War of Independence building, right? It's a 15 millimeter. These buildings right here, well, not this one, because we already figured out that's a 12 millimeter. Hey, go for it. Go for it says hello, and I'm saying hello. Yeah, we're doing a devlog. I'm working out some terrain rules. Welcome to hang out. Listen. Chill with me for this afternoon. This This is an N scale building, which is a 12 millimeter building. These guys are all 10 millimeter buildings, and these three here are 15 millimeter buildings. American War of Independence. Yeah. I might get some. I used to have some 15 millimeter Napoleonic buildings, but I don't think I'm going to go that route. I think I'm going to stick with my 10 millimeters. I've got a bunch more of these in, MDF. Okay, so what Command Decision, when I played Command Decision, what I would do is every building had a what do you call it? A ground area that it covered, right? A footprint, right? And so I cut some. I'm going to be doing this today. I cut some felt, right? The size of the footprint. And then you would put the felt down where the building belongs. And then you would just put your building on top of the felt. You wouldn't see the felt, or you would just barely see like a foundation of felt, right? It would just be, just barely sticking out the side or whatever. Maybe I went a little bit bigger, maybe I went a little bit smaller, whatever. But I did this with my 1/72nd scale buildings, which are a lot bigger than this. So I had these felt squares, one for every building I owned. So whenever I used that building on the table, I would just lay the felt where that building would be, and then I would put the building on it. Because in Command Decision, it also represented a town sector. It didn't represent a single building, right? And then when your troops moved up to the building, you would pick the building up and move it off to the side, and the felt would still be there. And then you would put your troops on top of the felt, and it would show that they had occupied the space of the building. And then whenever they left, you would just put the building back on top of the felt, and everything would be hunky-dory. The problem that I have with that, and there's nothing wrong with it. I played Command Decision for hundreds of years, and I must have played over 100 scenarios. We played a campaign. I probably played 500 games of Command Decision. I played a lot of Command Decision. That method or that system worked great. I had no problems at all with it. But I think I can make it better, is what I'm trying to say. The problem that I had with it was, and the only problem that I had with it was, you moved the building out of the way, and then you occupied the felt town sector, and that building is kind of, out of place. You have to either take it off the table or set it off to the side. It kind of gives that, it gives like a disjointed feeling, like something's not right, But it's just a game, and you're playing and everything's good. Okay. The way I was going to do it was I was going to have a 4-inch square around my buildings, right? And then I was going to occupy the hardwood area around the building with troops, kind of fitting kind of on the outside, as long as, yeah, that's actually 4 inches from there to there, right? And if I had any building that was bigger, like this monster, you wouldn't be able to fit it on a 4x4. Actually, this building will fit on a 4-inch base, but then there's no room for any troops to deploy around it. So that was kind of a problem, right? And that was, now understand, this is a 15 millimeter building, and I'm not going to be using 15 millimeter buildings. I'm going to be using either N or 10. 10 or N, right? N is 12 millimeters, so it's a good, if you have a bunch of N scale model railroading buildings, perfect scale, right? A little bit smaller, 10 millimeter, still, I mean, just putting this in a town, with these buildings, it doesn't look out of place. It looks perfect. So, all right, and understand this is only 4 bases. A standard battalion is 6 bases. A large battalion, and that's why I got 8 bases here, is 8 bases. There's no way a 15 millimeter building is gonna work in a 4x4 area. Okay. And these 15 millimeter buildings and these 10 millimeter buildings don't necessarily look out of place either. So I could have a whole village of 15 millimeter buildings halfway across the table and another village of 10 millimeter buildings, and you would really never know the difference, right? It would be optical illusion. Now, these figures on their bases are taller than the doors. But that's not necessarily incorrect, because there were a lot of short doors. But that doesn't look out of place to me. Not as a building that's representing a town sector. Okay, black powder does something. I'm leaning into this, guys. So I'm kind of giving you all the different directions or angles that I'm coming at this from. Black powder does something where you take a building like this, you put it on the table, and it doesn't ever move, right? It just sits on the table. It's good to go. No need to move it. And then you would, when you deploy into a building, remember that black powder uses 40 millimeter bases. Maybe not at 15 millimeter. They use 20 millimeter by 60 millimeter, right? You basically place the troops back to back with the building, just touching the building, right? And then you're considered deployed in the building. I'm struggling with that look, right? Because it doesn't clearly define the town sector, and it doesn't. So now, do I measure from the base, or do I measure from the building? What if I've got an artillery piece or something? It doesn't really clearly define a town sector. Plus, this is too big for my tastes. If I had this building, it would still be a little strange. Right? Being deployed in the town sector. Now this is what this is what I was going to do, but I glued them on these 4x4 bases. And on some of these bigger buildings, I had to glue them closer to the edge or something so that more units could be deployed in the town sector. Maybe you would double up on one side. Maybe you would double up on one side, and this would be pressed up against, maybe something like that because of the way the square worked. And that worked okay. But remember, this is where I'm changing, or where I've gone to. I want the town sector to not be locked in to a specific shape. I don't want it to be exactly 4x4 for every town sector. That sounds good, but I don't want it to be that. But I also don't want the so I want the town sector size to be variable. Okay, how do I say this without sounding like a lunatic? I want there to be, I'm going to go with a couple of different ways personally that I'm going to be building my town sectors. One is when I build my bespoke terrain tiles, that when I lay out these tiles, it's all, it's like 1-inch squares, put them on the table with roads and rivers and wood lines and hills and all that already built into the tiles. So I just put them out and boom, I've got quatre bras. There we go. Sorry about that. When I do that, what I'm going to do, I am going to be building a quatre bras 4x6 bespoke tabletop. I'm going to be doing that in the next couple of months, probably next month or so. So there's going to be a crossroads, right? Quatre bras crossroads. It's going to have a road going up the hill and over to the backside, and it's going to have right there. Okay, so it's going to have this road going over this hill, and it's going to have this other road going at an angle, right? I don't think I'm going to model these roads. I might model them as like just a little bit of gravel or whatever, just to make it look like a deer trail or a path, but not really worry about making it a road. But this road right here, like there's going to be a bridge, it's going to be low ground, but specifically town sectors. When I get up to here, I'm not going to be able to so what I'm trying to say is I'm going to put a patch of dirt specifically where the town sector is, and then when it comes time to playing the game, I'll just take one of these buildings and just put it on the table where the town sector is already predetermined, right? It's going to be built into the table. So I'll just be able to put like my buildings down in Quatre Bras. Boom, everybody knows where the town sectors are because of where the dirt on the table is. And it'll have clearly defined lines. This is the town sector, etc. The other towns, the same way. The woods, I'm going to clearly define where the wood line is, possibly with a different color of grass. Because I plan to use grass paper over the entire table in various colors and patches where the fields are and stuff like that. But the woods will have their own specific color, and I'll just stack trees on top of it. And then when you move through it, you'll know exactly where the woods are. You just move the trees around. Well, the same thing is going to happen with the buildings. I don't want to make the town sectors so large that they are unrealistic. I kind of discovered this when I was measuring out Huguemont. When I was measuring out Huguemont for Waterloo, at my ground scale, this model would be about a foot wide, right? By maybe a foot and a half deep or something. It would be this giant model on the table. I don't want it to be that big using, and so I was thinking I would just use a couple of town sectors to represent it, which I probably will, but I'll figure out what it is on the ground scale, which isn't many. I'm going to say maybe, okay. When I realized that was going to be a problem, I also looked at La Haye Sainte, right, which is in the middle of Waterloo. It's only like 50 meters wide. And in my game, that's only 1 inch. 1 inch is 50 yards, right? So 1 inch wide by about 2-3 inches long, right? And then maybe 4 inches with the gardens and stuff. So it's like a super narrow, it's just a single build. Well, it's actually multiple buildings built up into like this farmstead. And I would consider that a town sector. And looking at my 10 millimeter buildings, this would be about the right size, ground scale wise, for La Haye Sainte, right? That would be the entire La Haye Sainte farm. And then if I wound up putting that on a 4x4, if I wound up putting that on a 4x4 base, it would have been 200 meters by 200 meters. Way too big. But on the other hand, I've got to get troops to be able to fit in that. Right? Now, I don't remember exactly how many troops that La Haye Sainte could occupy, but let's just say 1 battalion. So if now that's way bigger than that, right? Now let's hypothetically go like that. That seems very doable, right? Because if this building is the right size, the town sector would only need to be that big if I had a building that could be moved, right? So I could take this building and set it on the road or something like that, and it would allow for a La Haye Sainte size deployment. So what I'm planning on doing, I don't want my town sectors to be exactly the size of the buildings because they would be too small, right? Even for that, it's too small. For that, it's too small, right? So I want my town sectors to be at least this big, right? Which is 1.5 by 2, right? We got 2 base widths by 1.5 base widths. So I want my town sectors to be probably 2 by 2 base widths as a general rule of thumb. Okay? Not not mandatory, right? So what I'm going to say is probably 1.5 to 2 base widths wide, right? 2 base widths is just over 3 inches, so that actually saves 50 yards. Now on the big, like let's say Papalot, right? The city, it's really a city of Papalot, and then you've got Hougoumont, which is a big fortified farm complex, would not be one town sector. It would be multiple town sectors representing the entire farm complex. Because I think there's like 3 battalions worth of men in Hougoumont, so there needs to be at least 3 town sectors represented. The way I'm thinking I'm going to do it is have one town sector here, another town sector behind it, right? And then a third town sector off to the side where the walled orchard is at, right? So you got, hypothetically, not to scale, but like 3 town sectors like that. And if I did 1.5 by 1.5, that might not be big enough. 1 by 2s. Okay. It could be 4 that way. That'd be fine. And then it would only need to be 3 that way. But I guess 4 would be fine. Yeah, so that's what I'm planning on doing. It is cutting some felt the size of my town sectors. This is what we're going to do right now. I'm going to cut this felt. Thought I was. Scissors. This is just an experiment, not the final product. lay everything down. There we go. Now, I recently just ordered some light brown felt because I think that's more appropriate for farmsteads and stuff. This might be great for a city, but like there's a square 2x2, right? 2 base width by 2 base width. This would be on the table, and a building would be sitting on that, right? And that's what it would look like on the table. And then as units deploy into it, you would just adjust. And this also basically lets you put 2 side by side because of 2 base widths. Hey. How's your hand?
I haven't checked.
Oh, you got a bandage on it?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's good. Because a 2x2 allows you to form like a perfect square, right? So if I had a tiny building, you know, it might fit inside there. But, which I do actually. I've got a few MDF buildings. This actually, there. But these bigger ones obviously wouldn't fit in there. So what I would be forced to do is, what I would personally do is probably do something like that, and then just put the building partially on there. So it kind of looks like they're deployed in a building. And then if you needed to measure out of each side, you can just move the building temporarily out of the way. If you wanted, you could just have your infantry just all over the place inside the town sector, because you know they're deployed. But yeah, that's the idea, is felt base for the town sector. But on my Quatre Bras map that I'm making, the town sectors are not going to be square like that. They're going to, because the road cuts this way. So I'm probably going to cut an angle that matches the road, and then maybe extend, you know, if there's half a base width cut off here, maybe extend this by half a base width, so then it'll be like a trapezoid. You know, that's kind, and then the building can sit on there like that, and then as the troops occupy it, they can. Now, all right, so that's buildings, and the way I plan to do buildings is only one unit can be in a building in each town sector, right? Yeah, now I'm not sure how I'm going to transition. Right here I've got, remember, as you activate a unit, they move and then they move. Or you can just move double, you know, but basically it's move and do something like a turn or change formation or something like that, or they just move twice or something. I was thinking that I would just have one of those actions, a unit that's touching a town sector can use an action to occupy. Boop, right? If you're in a town sector, you can use an action to exit, right? And the way I would do exiting would be you can leave in attack column, and one action exits, and then one action it takes. Basically, I'm not sure I want to do it. I'm thinking one action exits in attack column, and you measure whatever an attack column's distance is. Let's say it's 5 base widths, and then you just measure 5 base widths out, and you put your guys 2 base widths wide, and you just fill out the battalion, and then you put the building back. So that would be one action to exit. So basically it's free, right? Because an action to move, an action to exit. I don't know if I like that. I don't know if I like that. Another thing I could do is exit and specifically give them a range that they can move. Like when you exit, you only move 2 base widths, which is pretty much what I just did. Not 5 base widths. So maybe exiting, and if you had 4, you're a large battalion, you would be out, right? Yeah, maybe an exit is just two base widths. Now there is something going through my mind, which is if I have 2 town sectors side by side, can you exit and enter in the same turn? Yes, I think I want to allow people to go from one town sector to the next without having to exit out onto the road and then exit back and then enter back. I think you can just shift one town sector. But I don't want a unit to, I'm just going to use one base to represent. I don't want a unit that starts its turn touching a town sector to be able to use one of its actions to enter and then one of its actions to exit. Right? I don't want that. So what I'm thinking is you can't enter and exit the same town sector in the same turn. And I might have that. You may not enter and exit the same town sector in the same activation. You may exit one sector and enter a different sector in the same turn. Yeah, all of that is where I'm at. And that seems to be pretty good. Okay. A 2x2 base width, right? All right. So that's movement and occupying. That doesn't really talk about cover and all that stuff, but it does say you can only shoot one die per side. And then if you come up here where it's versus cover, bless you. I would say that if you're in cover, you get down. Wait. One rank or square or deployed. Down. That's if you're shooting, not the target. That's the shooter. Yeah, versus cover. Okay. So if you're deployed, like you're shooting from a town, you'll get a down. And if you're shooting at cover, you get a down. I was thinking that a town sector might be better than one down. Because some of these are fortified, like you're in a castle. So it might need to be like 2 downs if you're the target. Yeah, so I think I might list towns in downs. So like Gemian Court might be only 1 down, where Hugamont might be 2 downs, you know? And maybe there's some place that might be 3 downs. I doubt it. I don't think I want to have 3 downs. So 1 or 2. 1 down is a lot, actually. 1 down is a lot. So I might just leave all cover as 1 down. But I think some buildings will be 2 downs. A few fortified buildings will be 2 downs, probably. All right, so now linear obstacles, I'm treating these look good. Okay, so I'm treating like a hedge as a linear obstacle. And if you're up on the hedge and you're shooting, you're not going to get a minus, obviously, because you occupy the linear obstacle. So if you were shooting at a unit like, let's just say these 2 units. I think this is intuitive with most wargamers. They pretty much know this, but he would get the cover. He would not get the cover if they were shooting, and they both would shoot. And if he is on the obstacle, then neither one are shooting anyway, because I would consider that melee. Now, here's the clincher. If nobody's on the hedge, do they both get the cover? Or do you not get the cover because you're not occupying it? If you're not occupying it, this could really run into a lot of interpretations. I mean, I've seen games where you'd have guys like this, and they would say that they're, on the cover, and they're not. Why, they shouldn't get the cover where these guys should get the cover. Well, first of all, the unit has to be covered by more than half of its frontage. Okay? So if it is covered by only half, they don't get cover. That's what I'm thinking. But like, what if this unit's over here shooting at them? The way I plan to do measurements is I'm going to measure from the closest point to the closest point. That goes over the cover. This goes over the cover as well. But if I was there, this guy, one point to one point, there's no cover, but there is cover. So yeah, that might require some photographs. Or, yeah, because I would be afraid that if I had a unit like this and like this, he would think that he has cover from this guy. But frontage-wise, but either way, this guy is shooting at the nearest point, which is crossing the cover. So I personally would give them cover. So at what point do I stop giving them cover? Because like this guy obviously is crossing the cover. And this guy, if you measured like that, it not necessarily would be cover. Now, remember, when you're shooting one die per file, right? So this file would get cover. This file would not, versus cover. And this file would get not versus cover. I think that's the way I'm going to do that. What if it's like that? Yeah, I don't know. Now, hedges and fences and walls are all going to grant cover. So even a fence, even though there's holes in it, the cover doesn't stop bullets per se. What it is stopping is the loss of men. You lose men not necessarily by getting a bullet in the head. It's also, I saw my buddy get a bullet in the head, so I'm running. I'm out of here, right? I don't need to be standing here getting shot at. So when you take wounds and base losses, you're not actually killing 100 men. You're killing a handful of men, and the other ones have fled the field. So you would be taking bases off. With that concept, with that methodology, a fence actually psychologically provides almost as much, if not more, cover than a hedge, right? A wall. All of these are not, a wall should be a little better than the rest, but this isn't World War II. This is Napoleonics, and it's about the morale of your troops, not the casualties. Yeah, I don't know how I'm going to solve for cover. Um, if the closest point, maybe I should do this. Yeah, I don't know. Should I do the closest point to the closest point, or should I go from the farthest point to the closest point? Or should I do a base width shooting at what did I do with it? Okay. Or is it a base width shooting at, one base width wide? Is that whole thing firing? Remember, it only fires at 45 degrees. So he couldn't even fire at that. He would have, well, maybe he could. He would definitely be firing over cover because more than half of that base width is cover. Where this guy could angle his shot where there's no cover. He can't angle his shot because it's too far. It has to be 45 degrees. I don't know if that's a good way of measuring cover. These guys aren't on the hedge. If they were on the hedge, that's obvious that they're in cover, right? It's obvious. More than half of the battalion is in cover. What if it's a 3 base width line? That would mean they're not in cover. That would be up for debate. I would say that if at least half of the battalion is in cover, then the entire battalion is in cover. That means there's no room for debate. It's just they are or they aren't. Even if this unit is here, right, and they're shooting there, are they in cover? Yes, because you're shooting at the battalion, you're not shooting at that stand. Each stand fires, true, but battalion is the target. So as long as more than half of the battalion is covered, the entire battalion is covered. Trying to avoid rules disputes. This also only applies if the shots are coming from their front, which to measure front, you just draw a straight line across the unit. So if, hypothetically, it was like that, this shot is coming from the front, this shot is coming from the side. So they would not be under cover from this file, but they would be under cover from this file. I know it looks odd, right? It's a little, it doesn't make sense, but I have to word it in a way, or maybe I should say battalion is in cover Battalion is only in cover if at least half of every base is in cover, because that would make more sense. Because if he was deployed like this and it was like that, they would be in cover. But if it was like that, they would not be in cover because they're exposed. And if you were in a 3-base line and 2 of these bases were in cover, you're still exposed. But if at least half of all your bases are in cover, you're considered in cover. Okay, we got that. Okay, that's what I'm going to do. Now I'll clean this up later. Okay. Yeah, that'll count for walls, hedges, fences. Okay, that works. I'm okay with all that. The woods. Okay, woods are area terrain, right? So you've got large, either templates, or in my case, I'm going to bespoke, maybe lay out some felt. I've heard of some modelers, and I might try this. I heard some modelers are taking hard felt, stiff felt, and not this soft, flexible felt. They're taking the hard felt and they're actually flocking the hard felt. And they can just cut it to shape with the scissors. That's actually pretty cool, actually, because it seems like it would lay flat on the table and be flexible. Like if I needed to put it up on a hill or cover something like that, it would be just flexible enough to do that. Plus, I could make roads and stuff like that on hard, stiff felt. Just flock the felt. In the past, I've been using rubber magnets and then flocking or puttying the one side of the magnet and flocking it to make roads. Because felt alone, just laying felt on the table, doesn't really look good. When I was younger and I was just getting into modeling terrain for battlefields, I used a lot of felt. Felt for woods, felt for towns, felt for hills, felt for roads, felt for rivers. I might get some stiff felt and experiment with that. Because I've seen some modelers do that. It looks really good, so maybe I'll try. The reason why I'm saying that is my magnets I thought would be perfect, but after a year, they kind of curl up. So when you lay them on the table, they don't look right. And stiff felt might actually be better for town sectors too. But I don't know. I'm gonna order some stiff felt. And then when I get it in, we'll figure it out. All right. So what else? What else are we looking at? Oh, woods. Woods is an area terrain. So there needs to be a clearly defined wood line, right? Yep, I got it right there. Clearly defined woods feature, where the edge of the woods are defined. The trees should be able to be moved because units, like if this was woods, units would be able to move through the woods and just move the trees around, and then they could change formation or whatever they need to do in the woods. I'm going to define woods as difficult terrain, and then down here, what difficult terrain means. And then this various cover, I'm going to define that as things like sand pits, sunken roads, maybe a wheat field. I don't know. Just various cover. Hills are already pretty much clearly defined. If you're uphill, you get bonuses. And then roads. Really, all this is going to talk about is how wide they should be and if they give any benefits. Now, one thing that I was talking about was march columns. One base width wide formation. So if I have a one base width wide formation, I was thinking that they're always in command. Right? Well, I don't know if I should do that. That means no matter where they're at, they're always going to get to move. Some rule sets, Napoleon's battles. I don't know if you can hear me. I got my microphone all the way behind me. Some rule sets, like Napoleon's battles, say that to be able to get that free move, you have to be on a road. If you're on a road, in march column, you get to move along the road. I think that's okay for a brigade, but for battalions, I think they should be able to move however they want. My question: should there be a bonus of any kind for utilizing a road? I understand that a road that crosses a river as a bridge, not a ford, that's another obstacle, water feature. But a bridge would be treated just like a road. So to be able to use a bridge, you have to be in march column. I got that too. That'd be fine. But does the road itself give you any kind of bonus movement? Does it make you automatically in command? The march column already puts you in command. Now let's evaluate what movement actually represents. I have lines, attack columns, and march columns moving at different rates. A human carrying a backpack and a musket, they all should be able to move the same, right? Whether I'm in a line, whether I'm in an attack column, or whether I'm in a march column, I can only march a certain amount, right? A certain amount of distance. When you're not on a road, you are marching through the fields. You might stumble. You might, there might be ruts in the ground. There might be bushes you have to circumnavigate. So cross country, I think, should be a little slower than a road. Because if you're on a road, it's clear sailing, right? You just, and you're good to go. So I think a march column on a road should get a bonus in speed. And the reason why I say a line is slower than an attack column, which is slower than a march column in general, is because in a march column, it's easy to follow the guy that's in your front, right? You just keep up with the guy in front of you. It's ranger file. He's going, you're going, everything's good. Now, once you start widening your formation, it's not single file, obviously. It's like 4 to 8 across. But a line, I'm going to the extreme. A line is 100 or 200, we're talking about a battalion, is like 200 yards wide. Maybe not that much. Maybe 150 yards wide or something like that. And so you and your fellow man to the left and right, you're trying to stay in line with them. You're constantly looking. It's dress, right? So you're constantly looking to your right, trying to maintain an alignment, right? And so you're marching, but you're not just going. You're constantly having to address. And your NCOs are constantly trying to keep you in pace. The guys on the right are moving too fast because the guys on the left are falling behind. The sergeant on the left is yelling at his guys to keep up, and so there's this ebb and flow, and that's why lines move slower, because they're trying to stay in line. Columns attack columns have that same problem, but less so, a lot less so, because they're not everybody online. You're basically units, two companies beside each other, march columning, if that makes sense. So so one unit might get a little ahead, and they still have the ebb and flow, but a lot less so. And so so that's why I gave lines a really short movement distance, attack columns the mid-range, and a march column a really good movement. And I think I'm going to give march columns a bonus on a road. If they start and finish on a road in march column, they get a bonus. I didn't mean to do that. There we go. Yep. Okay. Add 100 base widths. Okay, so that's that. I just put that number in there. I'm thinking 1 base width. It doesn't seem like a lot, but if you move twice on a road, you're getting a bonus of 2 base widths. to an already pretty sizable movement distance. Do I have it here? Yeah. Infantry, and I'm looking at infantry in March, is moving 4 base widths, right? 1 base width is an additional 25%. That's pretty good. I think cavalry should get 2 base widths. Infantry get 1 base width. Infantry and artillery. Infantry and artillery. Maybe I add a column on there. Like infantry, it'll say 4 plus 1. And then like light cav will say 8 plus 2. Light artillery might be 8 plus 2. Heavy cav, 6 plus 1. And then heavy artillery, 4 plus 1. I think that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to put it right there in the move distance area. Because line and columns, they don't move on the road. So only the march. And yeah. Yeah, I think it's going to be 1 base width. Because if you move twice, now the infantry in March is moving 8 base widths. And on the road, an extra 2. So they're moving 10 base widths, which is 400 millimeters, which you can't see my finger, but there you go, right there. That's 30. So another 10 past that. So you're looking at about almost 16 inches for infantry. I think that's pretty far. Yeah, we're going to do that. Yeah, it's going to be 1 or 2 base widths. If you're cavalry on a road, they're going to fly. Okay. Hills are going to be difficult terrain. Up or down or across, it doesn't matter. It's all going to be difficult terrain. Water features like streams. Oh, moving across linear obstacles. Yeah, it's not just cover, right? We got the cover solved, but moving across a linear obstacle. I'm getting ready to end the stream, just letting you know, but we'll knock out this real quick because it's going to be very similar to a stream as well. So, linear obstacle like a fence, a hedge, a wall, or a crick. Say creek, I said crick. Yeah, that's past my lunchtime. I need to go get something to eat. Okay, if we're talking movement now, we're not talking cover or anything like that. Okay, so I'm just going to use 2 bases to represent. Okay. If I'm a battalion and I fly up to cover, right? And now I've got to cross the cover. Now I'm crossing it at an odd angle. Do I want to just measure and put guys there, maybe give them a minus? Like 1 base width? Or do I want to force them to align and then cross? Sounds like the mail is running, and I'm expecting some. I've been expecting a lot of things. My Litco order is not going to be here till Thursday. I know that. Okay, so do I want to force an alignment? Or do I want to grant an alignment? Like if you come up to a creek, or if you come up to a fence or a wall or a hedge, you immediately get a free wheel that aligns you. So like what if you hit the fence like that? You automatically get a free alignment. And then when you cross straight over. I don't think so. I think that as long as you have bases on that haven't crossed yet, you will continue to suffer a -1 base width. Okay, that's what I think. So if you got a column that moves 4, no, that's March column. What does a column move? Three. Okay. So let's say I go 1, just say it takes 1 to get there. And then, now remember, we're like that. So it's going to -1 to cross. So I only have 1 base width of movement. I can't even get across unless I'm perfectly straight. I can't even maneuver. Now, if I remember right, in Land of the Free, they have a rule that's really good about this. Let's see if I can find my Land of the Free book. Where are you at, Land of the Free? Probably all the way on the other side. Wait, I see it. Okay, Land of the Free. Excellent set of rules. I highly recommend them. Might have to change my glasses so I can see what I'm doing. Conducting a melee. Nope, that's not. The game turn. Interpenetration. That's another rule I got to worry about. Moving through your own troops. I think I'm just going to allow it. We'll see. Maneuver orders. Bear with me. charge, oblique, formation changes. They use disorder. Oh, that's right. They use disorder. Cross a linear obstacle. Infantry and cavalry elements attempting to cross a linear obstacle will need to spend a maneuver order to successfully navigate the obstacle. Elements will be able to cross that is no taller than the height of the miniature on foot. Okay, so if you've got a wall that's 20 feet tall, you can't cross it. Okay. An element in line or open order will move into contact and stop, regardless of the amount of movement it has remaining. The next maneuver order will move the entire element to the opposite side of the obstacle and receive a disorder marker. Okay. And it says an element in march column requires 2 maneuver actions to cross a linear obstacle. Place the entire element on the opposite side of the obstacle once both maneuver actions have been spent. I do believe that in this game you get 3 actions. Yeah, an element will never hang on a linear obstacle, nor will it ever have a portion of it stands on one side and a portion of it stands on the other side. I love that. The entire element will be on one side of the linear obstacle or the other. If it does not have enough maneuver orders to cross, then it will wait until it has enough maneuver orders to do so. Okay, in Land of the Free, they use disorder, which it only takes 1 maneuver action to remove a disorder. And I think they have 3 maneuver actions, I think, per element. So what they're saying is, let me revert my glasses back. If an element moves up and touches a linear obstacle, they would spend an action to cross the linear obstacle, which the entire element would cross. So they'd get a free pop to the other side, but now they've received a disorder marker because, some people are struggling to get across and the lines aren't in order and stuff like that, which in Land of the Free, let's say they go 1 to the obstacle, 2 to cross the obstacle, and then they could spend their 3rd action to remove the disorder marker. Or they could stay disordered and do whatever disordered troops can do, which isn't much. Kind of like that idea. I like the fact that they're putting disorder markers on them. I think I would require 2 actions to cross and no disorder. The reason why is I don't want to have units disordered. That's not an element of my game. And if I use 2 orders to cross, that effectively is like moving across, being disordered, and then using the second action to clear the disorder. So you cannot move up to an obstacle and cross it in the same turn, because you need 2 actions. Or I can make an exception. Then I have to work disorder into the mechanics of the game, like for shooting and movement and melee and all that. And I don't want to do that. So requires 2 actions. So you move up, you get ready to cross. If you've got enough movement, you can wheel if you want or not, or whatever. Stand or retract. And then you spend both actions crossing. Because if I'm in line, right, and I cross, you have to cross directly ahead. So let's say I'm like this. This obstacle is like that. And I okay. So how far did I just move? 2.5. Okay, which is fine because a line, a full move with a line is 3 base widths. Right, 1.5 and 1.5. Okay, I like that. I think I'm going to do that. Linear obstacles require 2 actions to cross. Now, if I was straight on, now the way the rules are written, it shows an example of straight on. So it's like you're here and then you're here, which isn't really that far. But if you're like this and you go all the way to there, you're actually quite far. Um, so hypothetically, looking at one move, basically double move. Yeah, so you get one move to cross and then one move to reorganize. Okay. So I think crossing a linear because of the manpower or the scale of the game and it's not huge units. I think I'm going to force units to be aligned with the obstacle. And then to cross it, they have to use a full move. And all it does is put the back of your unit right there. Yeah, that's a full 2-action move. If you come at it at an angle, you can't cross. You have to align first. Yeah, I'm going to write that into the rules. Okay. This is just notes. I'll go in and clean all that up and write it the way I want to write it. I think the same for rivers. Yeah, not streams or rivers. These are covered in water section. But crossing it, it's not cover, but it is still a linear obstacle. Okay, we'll go into that. Okay, all right, guys. Well, this is what we're going to call the stream. I've been on for a couple of hours. It's time for me to eat, and I have a little bit of cleanup that I need to do in my hobby area because I busted out a whole bunch of boxes trying to find this felt. Couldn't remember. But I think I'm going to order some stiff felt as well. Experiment with both. All right, guys. Now, oh yeah, and the tiles. I'm going to be making those as well. I have some 2-inch thick 2x2 by maybe it's only 2x2 by 1 blue foam. I think I might just order some 1x1 pink foams because I want to create some hills on these tiles I'm going to be making. But they don't have to be drastic. Quattrobrock, like fighting a hill or something. I just want to make the terrain. You got your low ground for the river, high ground road, low ground on the far side. Yeah, so I think might work. And if I need to double them up, I guess. Don't know. Okay. Well, thanks for coming out and checking this out. And I will see you probably not tomorrow unless you're watching my Traveler stream, but definitely Thursday because I'm expecting my lit goal.